I never believed that your thoughts create your reality, until the day I almost lost everything that mattered to me. My name is Omar, and 3 years ago at 34, I thought I had my life figured out. I was living in Los Angeles, working as a software engineer for a tech startup in Venice Beach, and everything seemed to be falling into place. But what happened next would challenge everything I thought I knew about healing, hope, and the power of intention. It started with exhaustion. Not the kind you get from pulling all-nighters coding. This was different. I'd wake up feeling like I'd run a marathon in my sleep. My Palestinian grandmother, Teta Mariam, who lived with us in our Glendale apartment, kept saying I looked pale. "Ya Habibi," she'd say, touching my forehead with her weathered hands, "you need to rest more." But I was 34. I was supposed to be in my prime. I brushed off her concerns and kept pushing myself at work, thinking it was just stress from the new project we were launching. The universe, I would later learn, had other plans. The morning everything changed, I was in our weekly team meeting when suddenly the room started spinning. One moment I was explaining our database architecture, the next I was on the floor, my colleagues' worried faces blurring above me. The ambulance ride to Cedars-Sinai felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. "Mr. Khalil," the doctor said, adjusting her glasses as she looked at my test results. "We need to run more tests, but we're seeing some concerning blood work." Those words echoed in my head as I sat in that sterile hospital room, the smell of disinfectant making my stomach churn. Signs from the universe that I was completely ignoring. 2 weeks later, the diagnosis came like a sledgehammer, a rare autoimmune condition affecting my blood. The doctor explained it with clinical precision, but all I heard was chronic, degenerative, and no cure. She handed me pamphlets about managing symptoms and adapting to a new normal. I remember staring at those glossy brochures, feeling like my entire future had just been erased. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony overlooking the San Fernando Valley, watching the city lights blur through my tears. My phone buzzed with messages from concerned friends and family, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. How do you tell people that the life you thought you were building is suddenly on hold indefinitely? My best friend Karim, who I'd known since we were kids in Detroit before my family moved to California, wouldn't let me disappear into isolation. He'd show up at my apartment with takeout from our favorite Lebanese restaurant on Hollywood Boulevard, forcing me to eat even when I had no appetite. "Habibi," he said one evening, sitting across from me as I picked at my kibbeh, "you can't give up like this. This isn't the Omar I know." "What do you want me to do, Karim?" I snapped. "Pretend everything's fine?" "The doctors said there's no cure. This is my life now. But the universe is listening, even when we think we're shouting into the void." What happened next, I could never have imagined. Karim leaned forward, his expression serious. "Look, I know this might sound crazy, but my sister Layla sent me this video. It's about this guy who healed from something similar using different methods." "What, like prayer?" I asked, though my family had already organized prayer circles at 3 different mosques. "Not exactly. It's about vibrational healing, about how our thoughts and emotions affect our physical health." I know it sounds weird, but what if there's something to it? I almost laughed. Here I was, a logical engineer who debugged code for a living, and my best friend was suggesting I watch YouTube videos about healing vibrations. But the look in his eyes, the same look he'd had when we were kids and he'd convinced me to sneak out to the 7-Eleven for slushies, made me pause. "What's the worst that could happen?" he continued. "You waste an hour watching a video?" That night, alone in my room with Tita's soft snoring drifting through the thin walls, I opened my laptop. The video was titled, "Quantum Healing: How I Reversed My Autoimmune Disease." The presenter, Dr. Marcus Chen, spoke with quiet conviction about the connection between our emotional state and physical health. He mentioned names I'd never heard: Dr. Joe Dispenza, Abraham Hicks, Neville Goddard. Your body is constantly listening to your thoughts, Dr. Chen explained. When we're stuck in patterns of fear, anger, or hopelessness, we're essentially programming ourselves to continue manifesting illness. But when we raise our vibration through love, gratitude, and possibility, we create the optimal environment for healing. I found myself leaning closer to the screen. This wasn't some mystical nonsense. He was talking about actual studies, about the placebo effect, about how our nervous system responds to our mental state. As a programmer, I understood systems and feedback loops. What if the human body operated on similar principles? But doubt crept in immediately. If this was real, why didn't my doctors mention it? Why wasn't this mainstream medicine? The rational part of my mind was screaming that this was just desperate thinking, the kind of false hope that preys on sick people. Yet something deeper stirred in me, a tiny spark of curiosity I hadn't felt since my diagnosis. What if the universe was presenting me with exactly what I needed to hear? I spent the next 3 days diving deep into this world I'd never known existed. I read about the law of attraction, about how quantum manifestation might work at the cellular level. I learned about visualization techniques and affirmations. Most importantly, I discovered that healing wasn't just about fighting disease, it was about creating your dream life from the inside out. Dr. Dispenza's work particularly resonated with me. As a scientist, he approached manifestation from a neurological perspective, explaining how we could literally rewire our brains to support health instead of illness. His concept of becoming a conscious creator of our own biology felt revolutionary. The first technique I tried was morning visualization. Every day at 6 a.m. before the world woke up, I'd sit in my meditation corner, a small space I'd created by my bedroom window overlooking the Hollywood Hills. I'd close my eyes and imagine every cell in my body glowing with perfect health. I'd visualize my immune system working in harmony, not as a broken system attacking itself, but as a perfectly orchestrated symphony. At first, it felt ridiculous. Here I was, a grown man, sitting cross-legged on a cushion, pretending my body was filled with golden light. But gradually, something shifted. The visualization sessions became the highlight of my day, the only time I felt truly peaceful since my diagnosis. I also started a gratitude practice, inspired by Louise Hay's teachings about self-love and healing. Every morning, I'd write down 3 things I was grateful for, no matter how small. Grateful for Teta's morning tea. Grateful for Kareem's terrible jokes. Grateful for the sunrise over the San Gabriel Mountains. But the real test came during my next doctor's appointment. Dr. Rodriguez, my hematologist, reviewed my latest blood work with her usual professional demeanor. "Your numbers are stable," she said, which in medical speak meant not getting worse. But stable felt like a victory after weeks of decline. "Doctor," I said, hesitating, "what role do you think stress and mental state play in autoimmune conditions?" She looked up from her charts, surprised. "Well, there's definitely a connection. Chronic stress can exacerbate inflammatory responses. Why do you ask?" I told her about my meditation practice, carefully avoiding words like manifestation or law of attraction. She nodded thoughtfully. Mind-body practices can be very beneficial. Whatever you're doing to manage stress, keep it up. Walking out of that appointment, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope. Not the desperate, clinging kind of hope, but a quiet confidence that maybe, just maybe, I was on the right path. The synchronicities started small. I'd be walking through Beverly Hills thinking about healing and suddenly notice a bookstore with Abraham Hicks books prominently displayed in the window. I'd be waiting for coffee at my usual spot on Melrose and overhear someone talking about how meditation had helped their chronic pain. The universe seemed to be confirming that I was headed in the right direction. But doubt still plagued me. Some days the symptoms would flare up. joint pain, fatigue, brain fog, and I'd wonder if I was just fooling myself. Was I wasting precious time that should be spent on more aggressive medical treatments? The breakthrough came during a particularly difficult week. I'd been feeling worse than usual, and my latest blood work showed some concerning changes. I was lying in bed, feeling defeated, when Tata knocked on my door. "Ya Omar," she said, settling into the chair beside my bed with a cup of her famous mint tea. "You know, your grandfather had something similar when he was young, back in Palestine." I'd never heard this story before. "What happened to him?" "The doctors in Jerusalem said he wouldn't live past 30, but your grandfather, he was stubborn. He refused to accept that diagnosis. Every morning he would walk to the olive grove and sit under the oldest tree, talking to God, imagining himself strong and healthy. Your grandmother, my mother, she thought he was crazy. But he lived to be 85, I whispered, remembering my grandfather's strong hands teaching me to play backgammon. 85 years old, and he died peacefully in his sleep, Teta smiled. He used to say that healing begins in the heart, not in the medicine bottle. That night I had a vivid dream. I was standing in an olive grove, sunlight filtering through ancient branches. My grandfather was there, looking exactly as I remembered him. "Ya Habiba," he said, using the same endearment Tita used. "Your thoughts create your reality, but you must believe it completely, not just with your mind, but with every cell in your body." I woke up with tears on my cheeks and a clarity I'd never experienced before. This wasn't about choosing between medical treatment and spiritual awakening. It was about integrating both. My body needed medicine, but my soul needed hope. I dove deeper into vibrational alignment practices. I started doing Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations, focusing on raising my vibration through elevated emotions like gratitude, love, and joy. I created vision boards featuring not just health, but the life I wanted to create. Traveling with my future family, starting my own tech company, making a positive impact in the world. The changes weren't dramatic at first, but gradually, I noticed I had more energy. The brain fog lifted. I started sleeping better. My appetite returned, and food began to taste good again. 6 months into my manifestation journey, something extraordinary happened. I was at my regular follow-up appointment when Dr. Rodriguez called me back into her office with an unusual expression on her face. "Omar, I've been reviewing your blood work from the past 6 months," she said, spreading the lab reports across her desk. "I want to run these tests again because, well, these numbers don't make sense." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "Your inflammatory markers have decreased by 70%. Your white blood cell count is approaching normal ranges. I've never seen this kind of improvement in someone with your condition without major pharmaceutical intervention." I stared at the papers, the numbers swimming before my eyes. Is this remission?" "I don't like to use that word yet," she said carefully, "but this is the most significant improvement I've seen in 20 years of practice." "What have you been doing differently?" I took a breath. "I've been working on my mental and emotional health. Meditation, gratitude practice, really believing that healing was possible." She nodded slowly. "Whatever you're doing, don't stop. I'd like to document this case, with your permission, of course. This could help other patients." Walking out of that appointment, I felt like I was floating. The LA sun seemed brighter. The Santa Monica Boulevard traffic sounded like a symphony, and every face I passed seemed to glow with possibility. But the real confirmation came 2 weeks later when the follow-up tests confirmed the results. Not only were my numbers continuing to improve, but I felt better than I had in years. The universal laws that I'd been studying weren't just theories. They were living principles that had literally transformed my biology. That evening, I called Karim to share the news. "Habibi," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I knew you'd figure it out. You always do." "It wasn't just me," I replied, looking out at the city lights twinkling like stars. "It was like the universe conspired to heal me the moment I opened my heart to the possibility." I started sharing my story, first with close friends and family, then with support groups for people with autoimmune conditions. I wasn't preaching or trying to replace medical treatment. I was simply offering hope and practical tools that had worked for me. The response was overwhelming. People wanted to know about the specific meditations I'd used, the affirmations that had resonated with me, the books that had changed my perspective. I realized that my healing journey wasn't just about me. It was about attracting abundance of health and hope for others facing similar challenges. Today, 3 years later, I'm not just in remission, I'm thriving. I left my corporate job to start a wellness tech company, creating apps that combine meditation, visualization, and positive mindset practices. My blood work consistently shows normal ranges, and I have energy levels I haven't experienced since my 20s. More importantly, I've learned that healing isn't just about getting rid of disease. It's about manifesting the fullest expression of who you're meant to be. Every morning I still sit in my meditation corner, but now I'm not just visualizing health, I'm envisioning the impact I want to make in the world. Teta, now 91, often joins me for morning tea on the balcony. "You know, Ya Habibi," she said recently, "your grandfather would be proud. You learned his secret, that the power of intention can move mountains, or in your case, move molecules. I've studied with teachers like Neville Goddard's students, attended Abraham Hicks workshops, and completed Dr. Joe Dispenza's advanced retreats. Each teacher contributed something valuable to my understanding, but the real teacher was my own experience of conscious creation. The journey wasn't always easy. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, days when the symptoms returned and I questioned everything. But I learned that synchronicity often appears in the form of challenges that push us to grow stronger in our faith and commitment to healing. If you're facing a health challenge right now, I want you to know that you're not powerless. While medical treatment is crucial, never underestimate the healing power of your own consciousness. Your thoughts create your reality, and that includes the reality of your physical health. Start small. Begin with 5 minutes of gratitude each morning. Visualize your body functioning in perfect harmony. Raise your vibration through activities that bring you joy. Trust that the universe is listening to every thought, every intention, every moment of hope you cultivate. Most importantly, remember that healing is not just about returning to how things were. It's about creating your dream life from this moment forward. You are a conscious creator, and your health is one of the most beautiful things you can manifest. The universe is conspiring in your favor right now, even if you can't see it yet. Trust the process, trust your body's wisdom, and most of all, trust that you deserve to live a life of vibrant health and unlimited possibility. If this story resonated with you and you're ready to trust in your own healing journey, comment below, "I choose healing." And if you believe in the power of hope and transformation, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Subscribe for more real stories of manifestation and healing, because your breakthrough might be just one story away. Remember, you are more powerful than you know, and your healing has already begun.